Welcome to the second module of RiverTools, a training maintenance kit for schools. In this narrated PowerPoint, you will learn what is a conservation landscape, what is a native plant, and why they are important, and how to care for conservation landscaping. What is conservation landscaping? Conservation landscaping is planting native plants with the intention of creating a garden that reflects the plants and environments naturally found in our region. At J.O. Wilson Elementary School, they had a front yard of grass. During the River Smart Schools program, a rain garden filled with native plants was installed. This is what a conservation landscape looks like. Native plants that replicate a meadow. Conservation landscapes are native plant landscapes. What is a native plant? A native plant is a plant you would find growing in the wild if you could travel back in time hundreds of years. Today, these plants persist in our parks, along our streams, in the woods and meadows. Plants can be considered native to a specific area such as the Anacostia River watershed or native to the United States. Generally speaking, a plant is considered native if it was growing here before European settlement. So why are native plants important? Native plants are important because they are more adapted to our local climate conditions than non-native species, resulting in less need and cost for herbicides, fertilizers, pesticides, or other soil conditionings. They can remove pollutants from stormwater and soils. They increase biodiversity. And perhaps most importantly, they support our local wildlife, such as beneficial pollinators, songbirds, and butterflies, by providing food and habitat. Native plants are important to people because they create beautiful spaces. They're important to nature because native plants provide wildlife habitat. And they're important to schools because students can learn about nature in their own school gardens. The planted meadow outside of a school treats rainwater that comes off the roof of that school. It is also filled with pollinators and birds and butterflies. It teaches students what natural plantings look like and provides a vibrant example of a dynamic urban ecosystem. So kids can see this meadow without having to go out hiking. They can simply go to school. Conservation landscaping uses a combination of plant types, such as here, native grasses and flowers. They provide an ecologically functioning landscape which provides wildlife habitat and is beautiful. It's very likely a goldfinch will show up moments after you've planted one of the plants they're attracted to. Where can you get native plants? At native plant nurseries, local nurseries, or even some of the more commercial establishments like Home Depot or Lowe's. There's one trademark called American Beauties, which is used to specify native plants. The slide on the left shows Virginia sweetspire in flower, and then the Joe Pye weed before it flowers situated behind it. The photo on the right shows a swallowtail butterfly nectaring on the Joe Pye weed when it is in flower. Planting combinations like this, plants that flower at different times, means that we are providing berries, nectar, or other sources of food to wildlife at different seasons. We plant native grasses because they have very deep roots, which can grow 4 to 10 feet. These roots minimize erosion, create healthier soils, and assist in stormwater infiltrating down into the soil. Some native plants, like this iris and switchgrass, are really durable. They can withstand very wet conditions and very dry conditions. Perhaps more importantly, their structure can slow the velocity of flowing water and catch sediment or trash if placed in the right place in a rain garden. Why is conservation landscaping important for schools? Our urban kids do not spend time in the outdoors, and specifically not in nature. At schools, they are often on blacktops or in grassy playing fields. Some might say these are not healthy places for our children either. Nature is essential to a child's physical and emotional development. Kids who do not spend time in nature experience a condition termed nature deficit disorder. Research in the US and Europe shows that kids who spend time in nature show signs of increasing physical and emotional development, decrease in childhood obesity, increases cooperative play and interactions, decreases ADD symptoms, and decreases childhood depression. So once you have a conservation landscape installed, what do you need to take care of it? What maintenance is required? We like to think of the 3 W's: water, weed, and watch. Once your plants are installed, make sure you water every day for the first 2 weeks. And then during the first 3 months, water 2 to 3 times a week, depending on how much rain you get. It is advisable to water the roots of the plant and not just the leaves, because the roots is where the water is really needed. Remember, weed early and often, particularly when the plants and the weeds are young. You'll need to plan on a monthly weeding schedule during the first year. And watch for weeds, especially invasive plants, during the first 3 years. Do the plants need water? Are plants dying? Watch for all of these things. Water, weed, and watch. That's the mantra we want to pay attention to as we think about the maintenance for conservation landscapes. It's really about weeding and watching after the first year of installation. Plantings will not be fully established until roughly 2 years after. And it's important to water plants regularly during those first 2 years to ensure their survival. After this establishment period, plants will no longer need to be watered unless it is really droughty. Mulch retains moisture and suppresses weed growth and moderates soil temperatures. You only need to mulch once a year, if necessary. Plantings will generally fill in after 2 or 3 years, requiring less weeding and mulch as the exposed soil is covered by vegetation. This is a struggling site. 6 months after installation, there's still 85 to 90% of the soil/mulch exposed. It just so happens that construction occurred right next to this planting bed, which led to additional soil compaction, neglect, and lack of watering. Again, pay attention to the 3 W's: water, weed, and watch. If it had been applied here, this would have been much more successful. Here at Ludlow Taylor Elementary School, you'll see a conservation landscaping planted in a rain garden that picks up all the stormwater from an adjacent basketball court. It is a combination of native grasses and flowering perennials that mimics an ecosystem found in nature, a floodplain meadow. Notice the amount of bare space covered with mulch. We have roughly already 40% of a vegetated cover in the first 3 months. As the plants grow in, there's less open soil, so there's less space for weeds to grow in, and less need for mulch, and usually less water. In just 1 year, you can see a lot of plant growth. It's incredible. We can see by mid-July, the native grasses such as switchgrass and big bluestem are the dominant plants. This conservation landscaping is planted in a rain garden. After 1 year, only 20% of the soil is showing, which means less open ground for weeds to grow. It provides a ton of wildlife habitat and is quite beautiful. Spot hand weeding is still needed, and you will need to watch to see if additional watering is needed during the particularly dry months of July and August. Otherwise, we would refer to this garden as being self-maintaining. The long-term success and function of a conservation landscape depends on you, mostly understanding the care needed for these landscapes when they are first installed, and the ongoing maintenance will make sure that they are successful. They are not static systems, they are dynamic. And with the right kind of care, will give you and your school years of joy. So remember, water, weed, and watch. Congratulations, you've completed the second RiverTools module. The next module is on bioretention cells and rain gardens.